What's up, Tudorinos? Welcome back to the Game Addicts Podcast, the show where we're talking about the modern retro video games that we play and collect. I'm this podcast player, one Brando. Joining me here today is this podcast player, too, Mike.
Hello.
What's going on, dude?
Not too much.
Yeah, man, today we got a different episode for you. Today we are coming at you with another retrospective episode, an episode we haven't done in quite a while, since episode 100, I do believe. And as I say in the intro, we talk about modern, we talk about retro, we talk about games we collect, we talk about all kinds of crap. We've done retrospectives on systems, we've done it on franchises. Today is the first time we're going to single out a game. We've already done an overview retrospective on the Final Fantasy series, but now is the day we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII in depth, completely retrospective on one game. First time we've ever done it. So pretty exciting to do that here today. It's both of ours favorite games of all time.
Number one, baby.
Number one. Now, with that being said, I will also say that I kind of agree with the fact that this game's a little overrated.
There's a lot of problems with it, and a lot of people just think it's a great game because a lot of people, it's their first game that they ever played of this kind of style. So I believe it is over-exaggerated. I actually have been in many arguments where they're like, 7's the best ever. No,
there's a clear difference between being favorite and being the best. I don't think this is the best Final Fantasy at all. I believe that distinction goes to Final Fantasy IX. You could make an argument for 10, maybe. 10 has a great story. Its the level and system's a little funky. But 9 is like everything that's awesome about Final Fantasy. Everything that had worked leading up to that point wrapped up into one ball.
and everything works.
Yeah. Unlike in 7 where there's some bugs and everything.
And it went back to the original 4-man crew instead of 3.
Yeah,
like 7 did.
Yeah, 7 changed that. 7 changed it to the 3, and then of course 8 followed suit. But then of course, and then 9 had 4, and then they went back to 3 after that for 10 and 10-2, and then I think for 12, was it 3 for 12 or 4 for 12? I don't remember. I know it was 3 for 13. I played more.
13 is 3. 12, I want to say is 3. I would have to look that
12,
up.
I'll be honest with you. I have not played enough of 12 to remember. So that's my fault. I was very anti-12 when it came out because it changed. It changed. And
Change me forever. Said Final Fantasy 12.
I was very against 12 when it came out because it felt more like Knights of the Old Republic. And I love Knights of the Old Republic, but I want my Final Fantasy. I remember getting Dragon Quest 8, and it came with the 12 demo. And I was excited to play it, and then I put it in, and I was like, no. But, of course, here today, we're talking about Final Fantasy VII. Mike.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember first
3? By the way, it's 3.
Don't hold me off like that, you son of a gun. Do you remember the first time?
I told you I was going to do that.
Do you remember the first time that you played FF7?
Yes, sir.
I see. I remember when I got it. I'm pretty sure I played it the same day.
I remember the ads for Black Friday.
Black Friday. See, I don't remember that so much. I remember the comic book ads. I had comic books with 2 full-page ads of Midgar and Sephiroth standing right at Genova, and like Sephiroth maybe in the flames too.
That's my background.
uh,
There's the flames on my phone.
but I remember. Okay, so when I got the PlayStation 1, my dad worked with a guy that was downsizing, getting rid of games. I don't know if he was just wanting to buy other games, but he would come home with like 2 or 3 games. And it started off as some sports games, Andretti Racing, SimCity 2000, uh, Triple Play 98, NCAA Football
Triple
98.
play.
Hey, I actually liked Triple Play 98. I used to do the code to get the little EA
Yeah.
players, and they're all super deformed. Um, it was great. But then I got this one 3-game bundle: Tomb Raider, Twisted Metal 2, Final Fantasy 7.
That's a freaking that's a change. Like that's one of the greatest games on those systems. So
I mean, that is a trifecta. And I had the guides for all 3. And I remember my friend William, maybe the year prior or whatever. This was like 98, maybe going into 99 that I got it.
mm-hmm.
I played a lot of games in a very short amount of time, due to my dad getting these games and then renting games. So like FF7, Metal Gears around the same time. But I remember like my buddy William was telling me all about this game, Final Fantasy VII, and all the things you could do. And I remember like, oh, cool, and like trying to visualize that, but not really understanding, because of course I played games. I had a Super Nintendo, I had a Sega Genesis, but I was not into the RPGs in that era. I was more into the licensed games. I was into Turtles in Time. I was into Batman Returns. I was into, Donkey Kong. I was into Mario,
Yeah.
Zelda. I was into those, and I really didn't. I think the first RPG I ever played was Mario RPG. So like, and it really did.
Which is a great one.
Absolutely, it's great. I love it, but it didn't really, resonate with me on that level. Kind of until I played 7. Now, to be fair, I don't know, based on time, what I played first, because it's hard to remember if I actually played Pokemon first or 7. It's around the same time. But
well, I know mine because I never played Pokemon.
I know you didn't play Pokemon, but when I played 7 the first time, I put it down and said, nope. Absolutely not. No, I'm not playing this. I have a choice between this blocky game where all they do is talk and cars with guns or boobs and guns.
You went with boobs and guns for 500, Bob.
Well, I mean, they were a little pointy. They're a little pointy.
They're triangular, yeah.
They're a little pointy, but I played the crap out of those games, and eventually I came back to 7, and it hooked me. I got so far that it finally hooked me, with where I wanted to know what happens next, and then from there on, it was like I could not get enough of this game. That became the moment I got sunk into RPGs. I played Pokemon because it was fun, and for the challenge of grinding and going through the game and then beating the trainers. The story is you want to be a Pokemon master. You got to go out there and you got to face people and do it. FF7 follows a plot. It follows character development. It does a lot of that, and it was the first game of that type that really captured my imagination. And it was probably one of the first games, if not the first game, to capture me on that level of such deep storytelling, to a point where I couldn't put it down. Like, I would stay up too late and play the game and get yelled at. And then I'd wake up early, really early, just to play, Although it wouldn't be until FF8, when I rented that I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning before school. I would get up at 5 a.m. And I remember, like, eating my breakfast, which was Easy Mac at the time, and playing, and I would play for about an hour and a half until about 6:30 or 6:40, until I would start getting ready to leave to go to school, because I think the bus would come at like 10 after 7 or something, because I actually had I was the first stop on the bus route, and we had to go get everybody else, and then we had to go to school, and that was like a 15-minute ride. So, I digress. What was when and where and how was your first exposure to FF7?
Like very first exposure would have been the Black Friday sale ads. I kind of didn't know what it was at all, and I was like, "Well, that looks cool." I did a little bit of kind of research that you could at that time. I talked to some people, and everybody was kind of like, "Oh, it's a Final Fantasy game. Cool. All right, what's that?" And because I was a big racer, I had, the Tomb Raiders, the Gran Turismo, Jeremy McGrath Supercross. I mean, that's what I had. And here's this game, and I pretty much begged to get it, and I got it. And I played it and never stopped for a long time. And later on, my friends would ask to borrow it because they didn't have PlayStations. They had 64s. So they would come over, and I was playing this game a lot. And they were like, "Oh, we need to switch systems." So, of course, GoldenEye. Who doesn't want to play GoldenEye? I hadn't played it. So, yeah. And I don't know what really hooked me on the game. I just remember starting to play it, and I didn't like Midgar at all. I especially didn't like the girl thing that you have to do.
The whole cross-dressing segment.
Yeah, I was like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I really don't 100% understand what's going on. And this story's going and going, and I'm very confused. And then you get out of Midgar. You go to the first town, and Cloud kind of explains what's going on a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's kind of cool. And that was it. After, what was that? I can't remember the name of the tower. I know the tower name. Condor Tower.
Fort Condor, yeah.
Yeah, Fort Condor. And I was like, this is stupid. And I was kind of getting a little irritated with it until Golden Saucer. And I was like, this is cool. And after my first playthrough, almost everybody's first playthrough, you get Eris as your ride. And it started really getting deep into story. And I was like, oh man, I like this. And that's pretty, I was hooked on, I played it back to back 5 or 6 times all the way through before I touched another game.
The moment that got me hooked, I'll never forget it, was the moment that Shinra dropped the Sector 7 plate.
Mm.
It was the moment where they dropped the plate on top of the slums and they kill all those people.
Rabble, rabble, rabble.
Well, I just remember, being a pretty young and impressionable man.
Yeah.
We're the heroes. We're going to go save the day, and then we barely escape with our lives, and they have that whole cutscene where that whole thing drops, and you're just like,
they kill that entire section of the slums.
oh man, and all the people in the plate.
Mm-hmm. Just to kill the group.
Yeah, like the terrorist group, and it's just, my God.
It's deep.
I was like, man, and then I was like rocked, just as rocked as the characters were, And then they're like, we have to go stop them, and I'm like, damn right we do. We're gonna go kick their ass.
Yeah.
And of course, then I'm sold, man. But that game would go on to define the early days of the PlayStation. Like as I said, Tomb Raider and Twisted Metal, Crash Bandicoot, these early games Resident Evil would, be games that would really hail and be exclusive to the PlayStation. That games that you couldn't play anywhere else other than the Saturn for a couple of those, but
Right.
they play better on the PlayStation. And 7 is one of those games. Well, Final Fantasy was a long time associated with Nintendo. The original Final Fantasy and coming out on the original Nintendo, and then of course in America we got 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo, which are 4 and 6.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get the original 2, original 3, or 5. They just bounced. They were like, this series doesn't have any legs over there. And honestly, 6 is regarded as one of the best. FF3 over here in the States.
Yep.
Again, largely because it was a lot of people's first, but also it does something that no Final Fantasy has done since, and that is have like 4 main characters. It's like it's like an ensemble cast. It's got so many characters and so many stories, and it just
which is funny that you mentioned that, because the game that was meant to be Final Fantasy X ended up being that exact same thing, where you had 4 characters and they were all the main character. There was no specific main character, and that game would turn out to be Bravely Default, and that was actually slated to be 10.
Right, but with 6 you had Terra is the main character, right? But then you can also make an argument for Locke. You can make an argument for Celeste being the main character. And then there's like all these other side characters, and then you can put all these different groups together to make custom different little parties, if you will. But at some point they were starting work on Final Fantasy VII after 6, and it was going to end up being something along the lines for the N64. But actually, before we even get there, it actually started off in development for the Super Nintendo.
It did.
And it was pretty early. Even with the story was completely different. It was going to be like a detective story. And Cloud was going to be a guy named Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Where you going with that gun in your hand? But anyway, they had some trouble with Chrono Trigger. I don't know what exactly, but they ended up calling most of the team that was working on this new Final Fantasy over there to help out and finish up the development. Chrono became a priority to get done and to push out. And that was like in 94, probably, going into 95, because Chrono released in 95, I do believe. But then after that, they went back to 7, and then they shifted. Like, all right, we're going to go on to the Nintendo 64, which was the next Nintendo system. And so they created a tech demo using FF6 properties, like the characters and in designs and everything. And it was really cool for the time. I mean, we got to see some of these, think about it. We went from FF6, Chrono Trigger, these 2D sprites, to now seeing full-fledged 3D images.
Yep.
And a battle sequence. And, it's a tech demo. It's not running perfectly. It's a lot of the animations are really long and drawn out.
Really long.
And, I mean, granted, they would fix that. But, I mean, then you have the Knights of the Round summon animation, which would be forever.
you've got a good solid 1 minute before anything comes. You go get a drink.
You go get a drink and take a pee. If you need to, get back before it's all done. But
especially if you use the quadra summon with the
oh my gosh,
with the reflect.
Set the controller down.
Set the controller down.
Use a bathroom. Wash your hands. Get a drink. Make a sandwich. Come back, and you're just getting done with the second one.
Yeah,
you still got 2 more. But anyway, they were gonna make the game for the Nintendo 64, then called the Nintendo Ultra 64. But then something happened. Nintendo was toying with the idea of a disc-based system, not CDs. Nintendo was like, no CDs, because of the whole thing with Philips and Sony before, when they were going to do the Super Nintendo add-on type thing.
Right.
they were really burned, no pun intended, by CDs, and so they were looking at a disk drive system similar to like a cartridge, like a floppy thing. And they've had something like that in the past for the Famicom. They have the Famicom disk system. This was going to be something like that. But anyway, they went with cartridges, and they were going to do a disc system later, which they did, and only like 4 games or 8 games came out for it. Games that were originally slated for the disc system, like Majora's Mask, and that came on to cartridge. And then it was like the disc system. We had the Famicom disc system, and a lot of the games that were made for the disc system, like the original Legend of Zelda, we just got a cartridge for it over here.
Right.
But there was like a some Mario learning game. There was like a Sim City game. They're making a sequel to Earthbound on the disc-based system that would just end up getting remade on the Game Boy Advance to be Mother 3. There was a F-Zero add-on thing where if you had the original cartridge, you could put this in there and get more tracks and stuff. But since they went with that, here's Squaresoft were making FF7, and they were being pretty ambitious. As you know, if you're watching on video, I'm showing the tech demo. I guess we talked. They're being really ambitious for the time. You know, trying to do a lot of cool 3D like imaging and all this kind of stuff. And the 64 on cartridges, they just weren't going to be able to handle it. They wanted to do more big kind of like full animated video, this is one of the first games they did that with. And like, we can't do that on cartridge. So here's Sony, new kids on the block, saying, we got CDs, pal. And
we got the CDs, yo.
Yeah, so then they were all, hey, Nintendo, it's cool, but we're going over here. And that actually burned. Nintendo was pretty upset about that.
Yeah.
They weren't happy. They had a good working relationship with Square. They just did Mario RPG before this. And they were pretty upset that they were going to go with Sony. And in Square's defense, the big folly of the N64 is partially because it's a cartridge-based system. When it was cartridges were starting to become, at that time, oddly enough, we would actually kind of come back to cartridges in a way, right? With the DS and then the Switch. But then cartridges were
they've always liked cartridges. Nintendo has always liked the cartridge-based systems. Right. I don't know why.
Well, I mean,
I get you don't have to load the games onto the systems, but
well, I mean, with the cartridges, the read times are much faster, and especially with the technology that's kind of come on with SD cards and the stuff they have. It's a lot cheaper to manufacture those than it is for discs now, which is kind of odd. But because originally it was the opposite, N64 games used to be like $60 to like $70, and PlayStation games were $40. Even FF7, which was on 4 discs, was still $40 when it launched brand new. But they ended up going with Sony, and Sony got right behind them. They're like, yes, we want Final Fantasy here on the PlayStation, and like, we'll do anything. Like, we'll help you out with. I'm not sure if they paid for marketing, but I'm sure Sony was a big part of that too. Like, Square's like, we're going to market this in a different way in North America to try to really push it. And Sony was like, it's only on PlayStation. And it's like, of course, they came out with like a demo disc for it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's some freaking cool. I miss demo discs. I like them.
I do too. And then it just got to the point where you could download them off the damn store. And now most games, and hell, now we have betas where we like play online games before they're out. But we ended up
But the thing is there's a lot of the games that I want. They don't have betas.
Right, and we can't try them.
Yeah, like we got to try out Anthem, and it was fun. But like, I would really like to try out Biomutant. It looks fun. I'm really interested, but I like to try it out.
I'm actually considering. Are they going to do something for the Division 2? Or has that already happened?
Hold on, let me look. I think it's already happened.
I was kind of interested in it because I never played the first one. I remember with there's a story that doesn't matter because we're talking about Final Fantasy VII, but the guy at work was trying to sell me.
So it is out for March 1st to the 4th during our open beta.
Oh.
Open beta is starting the 28th at 1 a.m. PDT.
Cool. That's cool. Maybe
That's pretty. You pretty much landed that right on.
As we're recording this.
Which
this episode may not air for a while, so maybe this actually could be way out there. We're actually doing this pretty not for an actual numbered episode. We're just going to release this when we need to, right? That's the cool thing about the
because somebody here may not be able to podcast for a couple of weeks due to a specific surgery. Coming up.
Yeah, so we'll see. And if you see this episode, pretty much that means that's happened.
Yeah, pretty much.
So back to
I might be recording in horrific pain.
Well, what we can do is we can get like a big sign or a big mask printed. That way we could just get a picture of your face being all like this and just put it over your face when you're like. That way you're really like that, but the fake mask is you being happy.
Right. I'll be doing this. Hold on.
Yeah.
That'll be me.
Absolutely. Man, but I tell you what. This when FF7 was released, which I think it came out in Japan first, right? And
I'm sure it did.
It came out in Japan maybe in like January, and it came out in the States in September of '97. I didn't play it until like '98, late '98, about a year later. But I remember my buddy just hyping it up and telling me all about it, and just like, oh, I'm fighting this guy, and of course I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm like,
so funny story. Do you know when this was released in the U.S.?
September 7th, 1997.
Yeah. January 31st in Japan.
Okay, so
since you just said that it was released in Japan first, I was like, well, I'm going to look it up.
Right. Well, in a very weird way, I know I'm reminded when this game came out, and it's almost like a weird mnemonic device. And it's actually my phone number.
Really?
Yeah.
That's. Well, somebody could actually get your phone number now.
Well, no, they can't. I'm not saying anything more. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, if you do get my number and try to call me, I don't recognize the number. I'm not answering. I don't talk to people. So, this game starts off with a really weird opening, and it lanes you right into the middle of a story that's already taken place, like as most FFs do, right? They just like land you right in, and you take control of a really anime-ish looking dude, Cloud, with a huge freaking sword. So we're gonna go right into the character profiles.
All right.
Cloud. He's your main character. What did I say? Anime looking dude. This guy looks like a damn Super Saiyan, which was out at the time.
Yeah.
Definitely a big, huge, spiky hair. Hair's all over the place. He's got this huge freaking sword.
The Buster Blade.
The Buster Sword. And, I actually discovered while doing research for this that the sword is kept on by a magnet.
Yeah.
On the back. I guess that's how he keeps it there. I never knew that. I mean, it just makes total sense, but I never even knew that.
That's one strong magnet. And he is one strong dude to be able to pull that big old sword from that strong magnet.
Right? So Cloud is 21 years old, if I remember correctly. And
yeah,
He's 21. Like, he's got to be one of the youngest protagonists. Well, I guess maybe not. Maybe 3. 2 and 3, they were practically kids.
They say they were pretty young.
The original 2, not 4-2. The original 2, Furia, and I want to say he's like a teenager. I think all 3 main characters of that are always there are all teenagers. But here's Cloud, and he's a moody sumbitch, ain't he?
Emo as.
Well, I wouldn't say emo. He's just very cold. I don't care. I don't care about the planet. I just want my money. He's acting all tough.
Yeah.
And that didn't resonate with me when I first played the game. I'm just like, why is he acting so tough, man?
Because he's Soldier Man.
Well, he's ex-soldier.
Yeah, but he was Soldier Man. They were the elites of the elites.
They were the elites of the elites. Of course, Shinra is the enemy. They're like the bad guys for the majority of the game until you get so far. And they're still pretty much the bad guys. They are a energy company, essentially. They were a weapons manufacturer that then transitioned into being an electric company and like an energy company. And they want to utilize Mako or Mako, whichever you want to say. I think it's called Mako. That's what they call it.
It's Mako.
They use Mako, which is the life force of the planet.
It's basically the spirits of the dead.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
They have reactors that suck the shit from the planet, and then they refine it into like electricity. And Cloud, our main protagonist, was once a member of Shinra. At first, you think he is a member of the elites. He's ex-soldier, and he's even wearing their uniform. However, that's not the case. Cloud is a big shroud of mystery, and it turns out he wasn't good enough to be a soldier. He only made infantry. He was just a normal grunt. And then, due to an incident that happened,
due to the incident
5 years ago,
yeah,
due to an incident that happened, he ended up being experimented on, injected with certain things that pretty much made him a superhuman.
Yes,
like a soldier of the elites, and and then his memories melded with somebody else, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But at the beginning of the game, he's a mercenary essentially, and he's helping out a terrorist group take on Shinra. They're like, we're fighting for the planet, so they're Planeteers, and you can be one too if you join Avalanche. And it's headed by this guy, Barrett. And Barrett is a big, muscly dude who lost his hand. He got a shot off, and then he got a gun grafted onto it. So that way he can just, which is crazy because I don't even know how he loads it. I mean, he just got infinite bullets.
Yeah, it is.
But he's a big dude, and he is the leader of Avalanche, and he's loud. He has a history with Shinra as well. Shinra destroyed his hometown. His hometown was called Coral, and they were coal industry. Shinra came in and was like, coal's yesterday. We're building a Mako reactor here. And they all worked in the mines. It was their livelihood. And there was a small little group of people that were like going against Shinra, and Shinra to burn down the hometown. Killing a lot of Barrett's friends and family, including his wife. And Barrett has a daughter, which isn't his by blood. Marlene is actually his best friend Dine's daughter, who he believed was dead, and her mom was also dead, and he just, took her in and took care of her. And he has a vendetta. So Avalanche is a terrorist group that once in lore in FF7 existed before, except they were a much more dangerous terrorist group. They were organized, they were violent, they killed people. Barrett is an idealist. He wants to protect the planet. He has a vendetta against Shinra. He wants to strike back at it. However, so then he was like, we're going to continue on the spirit of Avalanche, because Shinra eventually got all the members of Avalanche using the Turks, which the Turks, will get to them too.
Oh, the Turks. I love the Turks.
I do too. So Barrett reforms Avalanche. And as we said earlier, Shinra destroyed a whole section of Midgar. Midgar is this huge, technologically wondrous city in this world that doesn't have a lot of that. And it's floating. It's basically a city that's on stilts. It's a complete manufactured city.
The actual elites live up there, and the below that are the slums.
Yeah, where like the poor and the less fortunate live. And of course, it's more polluted down there. They don't get actually any natural sunlight down there. And Shinra dropped a section of the city. They destroyed it because their hideout was in Sector 7 slums. President Shinra, the head of the company, feared the return of the Avalanche that he knew, because he didn't know there was a difference between the old one and now the new one headed by Barrett. He feared that so much that he would destroy part of the city and kill all those people just to stop that from ever happening again, because he feared it so much, because he's like, they are going to kill us.
But that's Barrett's fault, because if Barrett would have chose a different name,
right,
things would have turned out a little differently.
Maybe so, yeah. It's never said in the game, and it's never really expressed with President Shinra's fear. And we just see this as a cold, calculating move. But it's also obvious that it's a decision written by, especially when you find out the rest of the story later, and you find out just how horrible the original Avalanche was as far as like a terrorist group, and how fearful he was of that possibly returning. You know, it was a jerk reaction. It was like, boom, after two things, he comes off as confident. He comes off as suave. He comes off as, I don't care. You guys are nothing to me. However, inside, he is deathly afraid. These guys need to be dealt with now, swiftly, and by an extreme measure. He did that. Barrett's, most of the people that were in the group, there was like a few others. The three others, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. They're only around for like the first two little segments. They are dead. And of course, Cloud was a hired gun. Tifa's there, and we're going to get to her next. But Barrett is completely broken, and then comes back in, even more powerful. I actually like Barrett's character development a lot throughout the game. He actually learns to know that he is not really a good leader.
Yeah.
And he recognizes that. And that's a really cool little section with him. I also really like every character kind of gets along the path, gets their own little part where it kind of tells their story about his, eventually he does meet back up with Dine. Dine's not dead, but Dine's gone mad. He's crazy. He's nuts.
Yep.
And Barrett's like, hey, your daughter's alive, dude. And Dine thought she was dead. And Dine blamed himself. And then Dine kind of blames Barrett. And then they fight. Dine ends up, unfortunately, killing himself, which that has a toll on Barrett. But then Barrett's carrying that burden for both of them after that. And, I really enjoy his characterization in the game. Unfortunately, the supplemental things that we got after for the universe don't give you a whole lot with him.
Right.
He's just kind of there. But the next character is probably the most important character in the entire game. And that's the character of Tifa. She has the most character development in the game. she is probably the without being injected or experimented on, probably the strongest character in the game. She's a badass.
Yeah.
You know.
Physically, yes.
Yes. And she's also one of the more level-headed throughout the game. She's a little naive at times.
Certain things, yeah.
But she is definitely one of the more stronger characters in the game, not just physically, but mentally. Again, she has her own little vendetta with Shinra. We talked about the incident 5 years ago. She was there. That incident refers to her hometown of Nibelheim being burned to the ground by Sephiroth, the villain of the game. And essentially, Cloud was there too, but she doesn't remember Cloud being there. So when Cloud's like, yeah, this happened, she's like, bro, how you know that?
Right.
You weren't there. But he was. What I say earlier, he was a grunt. Cloud, as I said, he projected his memory, somebody else's memories onto his own, and he's like, I was the soldier hero that was there, when really it was another guy named Zach. It was his friend. Really, Cloud was there under a mask the whole time. He was so ashamed.
Yeah, because actually, it's pulling back to Crisis Core here, as we've kind of steeped into. Sephiroth actually says, hey, isn't this your hometown? And he's like, yes. And he's like, do you have anyone here that you want to visit? And he basically says that he is ashamed to show that he had told all these people, I'm going to be a soldier. Yeah. And he didn't make it. And he doesn't want people to know he does not make the cut.
Mm-hmm. And Tifa, if you're watching this on video, Tifa's sitting on the well that's in the center of town. And
the well.
Yeah, the well. Cloud and Tifa make a promise there. It's a kind of a childish promise, but it's like basically that if Cloud makes it a soldier and she's ever in danger, he'll come and rescue her. She wants to be like the damsel in distress type thing. If she's ever in trouble, this big strong guy will come and help her. And he promises her, and he's actually there. As we find out in the twist later on, she's like, he wasn't there. How do you know all this stuff? You weren't there, but he actually was there, and he saved her.
Yep.
Or at least played a part in saving her. And there is some sort of like, it's weird because like when she looks back on it, she remembers Cloud, she remembers all these things, but at the same token, it's like, we weren't really all that close. I ran with my group, and you were kind of this outcast kind of kid. And always trying to get in, and then we kind of wouldn't let you. You were my neighbor, and yet, and like, there's all these kids that live in town, and there's like 4 houses, but
right,
which I assume the town will be a little bit bigger when we get to remake. But I think that she started like having developing a crush on him, and as it's seen in the beginning of the game. She finds him out of it at the train station. She brings him in. She's the one that convinces Barrett to bring him in as a hired gun. And when Cloud's like, I'm out of here, man, I'm gonna leave. She doesn't want him to because she's scared because this is her childhood friend, or at least someone that she grew up with, and he's not acting like himself. This isn't who he is.
Right.
He is messed up, and she basically did not let him go yet because she's like, I'm concerned. I want you to be around because you scare me. But in a way that like she just doesn't want him to get hurt. Like, what's going on? She it's that kind of thing where she's kind of letting him, like, not telling him he's wrong when he says things that are wrong. Just kind of letting it play out until a big section in the game later. But there's also this sort of romantic deal with her and him. And that carries into the post game too, into Advent Children.
Yes.
When when they get a house together, when they
open a bar up again.
Yeah. Tifa ran a bar, and that's where Avalanche's hideout was.
Seventh Heaven.
And then, they open up a bar. They live there with Marlene, which is Barrett's daughter, but he's out there working and trying to do good in the world. And they find this other little boy, Denzel, which he's a part of the Advent Children story. And then they're all kind of living there as like this weird little like family that's not really a family, like legitimately. It's like they're together, but they're not. It's like he always keeps her at like arm's length. She's only there when he absolutely needs her. And she's confused by this and all that kind of stuff. There's actually a part at the end of the game, and I actually read this, and this is hilarious. So it's heavily implied that Tifa and Cloud sleep together at the end of the game. That is right before you go to the last cavern. Everybody goes off and does their own thing and finds their family and spends the night.
Oh, yeah.
And those two, Cloud and Tifa, don't have anybody.
They only have each other.
Yeah. And it's heavily implied that they did. Basically, with them, they get back on the ship. Barrett and Sid are already there. They're kind of laughing and chuckling. And then she's embarrassed, and everybody else shows up, and all that Cloud does is kind of like scratch his head and like, But there was actually a scene that they changed. Apparently, it was going to be Cloud and Tifa walking out of the Chocobo stable on the high wind, looking disheveled.
Wow, that's definitely heavily implied.
Right, it pretty much spells it out. So I can only imagine they're on the hay, on like the hay bale, and there's a damn Chocobo in there watching. Quit. He's like, "Oh crap! Cloud's about to bust a Koopo nut."
Koopo.
Oh man, but that was cut. A lot of people. I actually know somebody who's a diehard denier of Cloud and Tifa being a couple, and to me, that's just not that they're a complicated couple, which I think gets. I feel like we don't know for sure, but I feel like their relationship gets better after Advent Children. At least I want it to personally.
Yeah, I would say so, but I'm also going to disagree with you that they are not a couple at all in any aspects other than they obviously have that moment there where they take the high wind out and spend time together looking at the sky, and then obviously Chocobo saw a little more than he wanted to, but as a couple they never really are a couple.
I'm going to just disagree with you with the way that it was talked about in Advent Children with Tifa.
Okay, then at that point, yes, but not in the game at all.
No. I was talking about Advent Children.
Okay.
I was saying after Advent Children, because Cloud has issues in Advent Children in the movie where he's still hung up with guilt over what happens to the next character.
Yes.
The next character that we meet is a girl named Eris.
So who he thinks he's in love with.
Yeah. She has an attraction to Cloud.
But only because of a certain reason.
Right. And it's funny because when you see her characterized in this game and then her characterized in other works like Advent Children and Crisis Core, she comes off as more flirty and more tee-hee, if you understand what I'm saying. Like in the main game than she does in the other works. The other works she comes off as more like angelic.
Are you talking about in Crisis Core?
Both Crisis Core and her little bit of characterization that we see of her in Advent Children.
I would say that the reason for that is she is very confused for the way Cloud acts?
Well, Eris or Aerith in our version of the game in the States, it was an S, Aeris. In Japan, there was a TH, Aerith, and then every other subsequent work, it's Aerith. But for the case of this, I'm just going to call her Eris. For Eris, she met and fell in love with a soldier, just like we said Cloud was. And that guy's name was Zach. And then he went away on a mission 5 years ago. Wink, wink. It's the same freaking mission. And, of course, Zach is Cloud's friend.
Who he serves with.
Sure.
He was one of his personal infantrymen.
Yes. And they spent a lot of time together. Zach was his friend. When Zach saved him from their experimentation, which happened after the whole incident, which we'll get to further, I guess. But Zach ended up, he didn't make it back. He died right outside of Midgar. And Cloud was subjected to Mako. He was direct, pure energy from the Earth, or from the planet.
And to be clear, for those that don't know this, that all soldiers are infused with Mako.
Yes.
So every soldier you see has been infused with Mako, but not to this degree.
It was basically Mako poisoning is what they called it.
Yeah.
And
they went way too much and basically poisoned him.
And fried his brain.
Yeah.
And that's why he's weird when Tifa sees him and he's acting weird. Well, he part of his personality was fused with Zach. So he's acting more like Zach than he is Cloud for the first half of the game, at least. And that really confused Tifa. This isn't my friend. And it confused Eris when she meets him because this is Zach all over again. Dressed the same way. Has the same kind of sword. It's the same sword.
Met the exact same way.
Ironically, right? That was kind of funny. But it's like, man, what's going on here? And it's funny because then, like, she does the same thing where she's like, what if we go on a date? They did the same thing in with Zach, right? Zach was very like open and flirtatious, and
right from the get go. First second he saw her, he was like, "Hey,
right,
hi."
But then she was intrigued, and she actually brings up Zach, and Cloud's like, "Don't know him." Because he can't access that part of his memory at that time. But Eris, she is what is called an ancient. She's one of the last of her kind, if not the last of her kind. And they were like some of the original inhabitants of the planet that were around when the calamity fell from the sky. And what that is Genova, this creature that came down from the sky, and they ended up defeating her and encasing her in I can't remember what they call it, like a shell or whatever.
I can't remember. Now you're going to make me look it up.
But Genova ended up killing off a lot of the ancients. The ancients are special because they can actually speak to the planet. They can actually they're at one with the planet. She hears the cries and the voices of the planet, and basically the life stream, which, as we said, is kind of like this flowing soul stream, if you will. She's able to like kind of speak with the dead, in a weird way. She becomes a very special character throughout the course of the game. And when I said that Cloud felt bad about something that happens, well, this game was supposed to be a lot of different things. Like, as I said, at one point it's supposed to be like a detective story. Then at one point they were going to set it in New York City, and then they changed it. And there were two other games that were in development that were almost kind of 7. That was would be the game that I just described being in New York City. That would be Parasite Eve. The other one would be Xenogears. And then what all changed is Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is the creator of Final Fantasy. He's a longtime executive producer and director of these games. Of course, he served as an executive producer on this one. This was the last game. This is what makes 7 so special. this is like the last game where Sakaguchi was directly involved with the story and a lot of that stuff. He took a more of a backseat after 7. He had already started to, but this is the last time. And you also had 6 where like the team that kind of made the first 6 were pretty much kind of out while the new blood was coming in with 7. And there was sort of this kind of crossover, with this game. And Sakaguchi's mother died. And that really affected him, and that really changed the tone of the game, because then the game, they've had character deaths before. Tella in FF4. I mean, and then pretty much every other side character in the original FF2. And then, of course, Galuf in FF5. But this was different because then, like, those characters are sacrifices, and it's big and epic. Eris, her death in this game was heavily influenced by what happened with Sakaguchi, and the story became about dealing with loss. There was other parts of the story, but it really became a big part of it. Them coping with the loss of Eris.
Yeah.
They all talk about it. They all reminisce about Eris and her sacrifice. And they did this cool video of them showcasing the death was, Sephiroth coming down with the sword and impaling her with no blood.
Right.
No blood. You got to keep it rated T. But
I hope they change that.
Oh, me too. Me too. There's no reason why there shouldn't have been, but at the time they were worried about getting an M rating for being too gory.
Yeah.
So Eris dies at the end of disc 1. I said there were 4 discs. That's the PC version. My bad. That's 3 discs for PlayStation. Which really the game is on the first 2 discs, and the third disc is just all the extra stuff. They couldn't fit like all the extra stuff and the last dungeon, so they just put all that on the third disc. That's the turning point of the game. Like everything up to that point was like, it had a certain tone, and then after Eris's death, the tone changes.
That's where I fell in love with the game. That to me was, holy crap, how could they do this? And then also in the back of your head, it's, I lost my healer.
Yeah, right.
As a player, you're like, oh my god, who's gonna heal now?
Exactly. Eris is a great character, and there's a moment in the game where you get to go on a date with a character, and the game actually has a dating mechanic that will let you go on a date with either Eris, Tifa, Yuffie, or Barrett. Depending on your actions, you actually have to follow a guide to get Barrett. It's pretty difficult to do. But Eris is the one that leads from the get-go. And in reality, I think hers is the best one to get because it's her last big character moment.
Yuffie?
No, I said Eris.
Oh, yeah.
I
don't know why. I was thinking of Yuffie. Yuffie's one of the harder ones to get.
Yeah. Yuffie, Eris and Tifa are pretty easy to get. Pretty much if you just talk to Tifa first all the time and kind of like give the flower to her and then say certain things to Eris, you can get Tifa pretty easily.
Yeah.
But Eris is one of the best ones to get because it's one of her last big character moments and a really big hint early on that something is off with Cloud. And what I mean by that is that during the date, at one point she says, I really want to meet you, Cloud. She's already gets it at this point. She knows something is up. She knows that she's seen.
She knows it's not Cloud that's really talking. Like there's something. It's Zach's experiences that he's talking to her.
Well, and it's like he's putting on a persona.
Right.
And she sees through it. She's seen enough and been around him enough to know and probably have seen a little bit of the real Cloud shine through to know that I want to get to know you. And he's like, but I'm right here. She goes, no, what I mean she has trouble explaining it.
And she says, if I remember correctly, you act so much like him.
Right. She brings it up. She goes, at first I thought it was like crazy. Like, like you looked, walked, talked just like him. She's like, I want to meet you. He's like, but I'm sitting right here. And she doesn't know how to say it. And I honestly, from my point of view, she doesn't want to break him.
Right.
She wants to do it in a way that's not going to break him because he's not ready for it. And then she goes, no, what I mean is I want to meet you. And then and then they leave you with that. And then you go to the Temple of the Ancients and do that part of her story where she actually gets to really hone in on her past. And, her character changes a little bit because she's very fast and talky. She's really excited, about the Temple of the Ancients and all that kind of stuff. And then she takes off, and then she's gone as a character. She goes to try and stop Sephiroth because Sephiroth is trying to summon Meteor, which is in the logo of the game, which is going to pretty much create a cataclysmic event, damage the planet enough where the planet's going to send energy, pure energy, all there to heal it, and he's going to be right in the middle, soaking it all in, becoming a god.
Yep. Because that's what Genova wanted.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, I can stop it by summoning something called Holy. She mentions she has a materia that doesn't do anything. That's that materia, the white materia, which you use the black materia to summon, Meteor.
Yep.
And the white materia summons Holy, and it stops it. So she's going to do that, and that's why Sephiroth, quote, Sephiroth, it's actually Genova, takes her out. And then the journey continues. But then Cloud really blames himself for her death. It's his fault. And he carries that guilt into the movie sequel, which that guilt is what really keeps him away on an emotional level from Tifa. And then, of course, him getting sick as well. And she actually calls him out. It's like, he's like, she's like, you can't keep blaming yourself for her. Not in those words, but essentially, what are you going to do? Are you going to mope, or are you going to go help your family? So the next character we meet, nope. Wait. Oh, no. Hold up. Hey, that's the wrong freaking one. There we go. Red 13.
Yeah.
So Red 13's a pretty interesting character, isn't he?
Yeah, he's actually one of my favorites.
Same, considering that he's not even a human. He's more of like a cat-dog hybrid.
And they never really explain exactly what he is. His grandpa kind of does, but it's not really in depth or no origin. It's just they're the protectors, and they've been the protectors of their village forever. But it's not like, hey, you are this. Mm-hmm. It's really weird how that explains. I'm trying to think of his name. His real name.
Nanaki?
Manaki, yeah.
So, him and he's supposed to be the last of his race, but we know that's not true.
Right.
And he is, as I said, he's he kind of looks like a cat, but then he basically does everything else like a dog. He howls and pounces and moves around like a dog. His tail's on fire. I'm not sure if that's a thing. He kind of has like a Native American-esque type vibe to him with the feathers and everything, and then of course the theme of his hometown, Cosmo Canyon, kind of very inspired by Native American music and
then his face paint.
Yeah. And he was experimented on by the real villain of the game, which we'll get to later. I actually don't have a picture for the villains. That's my bad.
You got to have one for that person.
I'd have to go find it. And it's not ready, and we're already recording.
Yeah, it's true.
My bad.
It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So he was experimented on by Hojo, who works for Shinra. Hojo's a scientist, crazy madman, who is essentially the reason for everything in this game. He experimented on Cloud, messed Cloud up. He experimented on Red 13. He experimented on Zack. He created Sephiroth. pretty much he is the no pun intended genesis of all the bad crap in this. The only ones that
It really is.
the only ones that weren't created by Hojo were Genesis and Angeal from Crisis Core, and those were made by Hollander.
Right.
But that has nothing to do with the FF7 game proper. Red 13 was experimented on and given the number 13 because there was a certain number of clones. There was like 12 clones. And then he gave this one the 13 number. And because there's actually a point in the game where they wonder if he's a clone too or what's going on. He experimented on me, but I don't know what's what. And they never really elaborate on that. And they never really go further into it to where he's messed up or acts weird. He doesn't.
Right, but Grandpa, says how old he actually is, and he remembers him as a pup, so it's implied that he is not a clone.
Well, right.
But it's never fully said you are not a clone. It's just Grandpa's like, I remember you literally be puppy, and you're only, what is he, like only like 12 or 15 or something?
He's like I'm 48. He's like, yeah, but that's like the equivalent of like a 16-year-old.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's
like he's 15. Actually right in league with like Yuffie in age for like mind, right. And yet like I really, did it throw you off at all in Advent Children when he says this one line and he's like a very well-to-do voice, like the first time I heard it I was like, that's not what I heard him as. I heard him as more of a character like this. Just kind of a more serious, trying to be serious, especially when it's like said that he's like 16 and he's trying to act older than what he is, more mature. Yes. I didn't imagine this.
Yeah, but in the movie, well, yeah, you're right. Because in the movie, he's still the same age.
Yeah, it's about 2 years later, but so yeah.
About 3 years later, yeah.
But like, essentially when he joins up with the crew, he's like, I'll join you as far as my hometown, and that's it. But then, of course, then they find out about the planet and Shinra trying to destroy it and Sephiroth doing something. And his grandfather's like, you need to go help these guys. And then, of course, they do the whole backstory with him and how he thought his dad was a coward. I really don't know why they let him think that his dad was a coward for all those years. But
yeah, I don't know either.
It doesn't make any sense. But then, of course, his dad's petrified. He got attacked by these arrows, and it basically turned him into stone, but he's still alive. He is still alive inside that stone body. That's freaking nuts because they lived for so long naturally. And then him turning to stone didn't kill him, which I don't understand why. But when he actually gets told the truth and he's like, he's looking up at his dad's statue, his petrified statue, and like he's like basically saying, I'm going to go, he's like, I'll protect this, our tribe. I'll protect our land. And I'll even save the planet. And then there's like tears coming down.
Yeah, from the statue.
Yeah. But Red 13's an awesome character. He's a cool, different character. It definitely breaks up the monotony of everybody being human for sure. So The next character is a little weird. That's Eris. We don't want Eris. I got to turn her off again. Which won't let me do that. There you go. What the? I accidentally moved the Eris folder inside the Red 13 folder. Caused problems. Kate Sith.
Is he the next character you meet?
Mm-hmm.
But he's not your next party member.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I saved the optional characters for last.
Okay. That's what I was like.
I always get Yuffie before I even go to the next continent, but I saved the optionals for last because if you did not get the optional characters, the next character would be Kate Sith.
Right. Okay.
So what do you got to say about Kate Sith? I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Well, I don't really have a whole lot with Kate Sith other than, it's somebody from Shinra trying to be good.
Well, and it's funny because at first he's not, right? He is a spy.
He's a spy, but eventually, as he spends more time with these people, he starts realizing, well, wait a minute, are we the ones that's wrong? Like, and then it really changes their perspective changes his perspective, and he starts seeking on his own outside of being Kate Sith, because it is a controlled character, and he kind of goes off and does his own thing as a human, searching for, what is this? What does this mean? And then really uncovers actually what is really going on. And the fact that basically if they continue to utilize the Mako reactors, it will kill the planet because it's killing the life source of the planet. Basically, the Mako is like water. Essentially, it is the essential item to bring life to this planet. So it's interesting because he starts out as a spy, and then he doesn't tell them till later on, hey guys, I'm a spy, but I now believe I want to be a part of this.
Right. He shifts now. The person in Shinra that's controlling him is Reeve.
Reed.
Reeve.
I almost said Reno.
Yeah, no, not Reno. He's a Turk.
Yeah,
Reeve. Reeve. We don't get a lot of character development on Reeve until later on, until like Dirge Cerberus.
Right.
Which is like one of the few things about Dirge Cerberus that's really cool, is that you actually get some Reeve development. But Kate Sith is a cat. He's a robot cat
that rides on top of what is it?
That is a giant Mog. It is a giant stuffed Mog.
Yeah, it is. It just doesn't look like a regular Mog, a Moogle, though.
No, and this is the only real Moogle that you see in the game.
In 7.
The other one is in a video game at Golden Saucer.
Yeah.
But Kate Sith, he has 2 different versions. One of them gets crushed inside the Temple of the Ancients when the entire materia is the entire temple and has to be shrunk down. And then he's crushed inside of it. Kate Sith causes a lot of problems early on. Kate Sith has one of the cooler limit breaks for slots. You can actually get one that will summon a random summon, and you can get Knights of the Round, even as soon as you get the slots, if you nail it just right.
It's pretty hard to do, though.
It is pretty hard to do, but it's pretty cool.
Those slots are super random.
But the next character is awesome. It's one of my favorite characters in the game. Sid Highwind.
Yes.
Sid Highwind is the last.
I think he's like one of everyone's favorite characters.
Well, he is such a dick when you meet him. He's an old, disgruntled dude that got his hopes and dreams going to space ruined. He used to work for Shinra under the space program, and they were going to launch a rocket and go into space. One of the his other people that were working with him, her name was Shara, discovered something was wrong, and pretty much was going to die to make sure he could achieve his dreams.
Right.
And then he canceled the launch, and then Shinra abandoned their hopes for space because they really got hungry on Mako energy. And
which is really funny because you get one of three, or one of the most important summons in the game from Mako.
Right. But yeah, so he holds a grudge against Shinra, against Shara. He's a grumpy old dude. I mean, he's not that old. He's like probably like 30s or something. But he's just he's grumpy as hell, and he holds a grudge against Shara. Ironically, she was right about the problems with the rocket. Eventually, they do go to space, and his character arc does change. Eventually, he does become the leader of the group during Cloud's absence.
Yes.
He does.
And realizes that he is a natural-born leader.
Kind of, yeah. Well, because what I love is that he actually falls asleep during Barrett's little thing, and then he wakes up and goes, "What's going on?" He goes, "You're the new leader." He goes, "Pain in the ass. Not gonna do it."
Yeah.
Like, ain't nobody else. Besides, you got the high wind. Without that, we pretty much got nothing right now. The high wind is, of course, the airship that was the
Commandeered.
airship. Yeah, commandeered by Shinra. But then
Recommandeered.
yeah, well, Sid's awesome. I absolutely love his character. He's a smart ass. I did not, when I first played the game, give him the voice that they gave him. Kind of like that Southern hick voice. But it works so much with his character. When I pre-play the game and I say some of the lines in my head and I hear it with that voice, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Sid is the last official character that you need to get for the game. After that, we have 2 optional characters, which was the first. Well, not the first time they did it, but it would be one of the last, really, to really do it this way. Yuffie is one of the next characters, and she is actually the second best healer in the game.
Yeah.
Which was something that I told you many years ago, and then you're like, what?
Yeah, because I used everyone to heal. Like, I mainly kept... Red 13 was always in my party no matter what. And he kind of pseudo became my caster, period.
Yeah.
And then I switched from like Tifa or Barrett or whatever, but I never used she just in the party and I just left her alone. And after that I started using her. I was like, holy crap, she is a damn good healer.
This is gonna this podcast is not supposed to be anything modern, anything going on right now. It's supposed to be completely Final Fantasy VII. We've deviated a little bit because we always do because we're just having fun. We're just talking. And of course, this episode may not air for many weeks, but I have late breaking news that is very important.
Oh, okay. How do I know?
This is very important news. Disc replay will remain open. They reached a last-minute agreement with their landlord. Buying merchandise will resume on March 1st. New merchandise will be arriving next week. We have our store back.
It lives! You can't kill the replay!
It's awesome.
That is actually, that's phenomenal. Yeah, that couldn't wait.
No.
Yeah. Where? So is that on Face? Is that the Book of Many Faces you saw that on?
That is on the Book of Many Faces. I did not mean to go and start looking at my phone while you were talking. I had a notification, so I'm going to go look at it real quick, and I'm like, it you know how it does, and it reloads the entire Facebook feed when you go into it. You're like, God damn it, what the hell are you doing? And then I saw that and was like, and you were still talking, and I'm just looking at you, blank face, going, I can't wait to say this.
Yeah, I was watching. I was like,
I was trying not to throw you off. I was trying to let you get your let you get your thought out there. But no, as we've detailed here on the show, a lot of the games that we have both bought for our collections have come from that store. Disc Replay.
It's not showing up.
It is a chain in the Midwest, but our store, we are friends with a lot of people who work there.
We are.
You know, a lot of them know us by, if not by name, they know us just by seeing us. Hey, dude, how you doing? All the time, dude. The people recognize me when I go in there. Same with Mike. They're great dudes. They always do us good, even if they mess up. They're always super good about it. There are some stores that just aren't, and I owe them a lot for just being there when I wanted to start collecting, and a part of that is why this podcast even exists.
Found it.
It makes me very happy. It makes me a very happy guy. Yuffie is an awesome character. She's a troublemaker, man. There's a whole side quest where she steals all your materia. Her thing is, she has a vendetta against the Shinra as well. Common theme. Everybody in the damn game has a vendetta against Shinra. And basically, Shinra went to war with Wutai because they wanted to build a Mako reactor there, I do believe. And they were like, no. And eventually they just turned it into like a resort town.
Yeah.
But she wants her country or her city or her birthplace to rise up again and be powerful again. And to do that, she needs to have materia. So she goes out on a quest to get all the materials she can to raise Fist again. And of course, she joins your group. The whole thing with getting her, you can actually mess up. There's a certain order of operations you have to get in order for her to join you. Otherwise, if you ask her name, she runs away. If you go save your game, she's gone. Every time you leave eyes off of that screen, she'll be gone. And with some of your money.
Yep.
My favorite thing to do, I actually would do this. I would take Barrett with me and go like save my game or something, or open up, and then she'd be gone, and then he'd realize the money was gone, and he'd be yelling, "Give me back my effing money!"
Yeah.
It just makes me laugh so much. Him having an aneurysm, but she's an awesome character because she means well, and she's kooky.
Well, she's a kid. I mean, she's 16 years old.
I know, and then again, from a gameplay perspective, as I said before, she's kind of the best healer in the game, or second best caster next to Eris. And then, of course, if you have any sources like to raise your stat points, I save all my magic ones and give them to her to help boost her for later on. And then she doesn't hit for that bad either. And then she's got a hell of a limit break later on. That isn't her last one, but it's a really good one.
So since we broke into the limit breaks, it's really weird because almost the main character's limit break is Omnislash. That's his big crescendo, essentially. And that's his last limit break. But everyone else's is the second to last tier of limit breaks. Barrett's Barrett's is the second to last one, right?
Anger Max.
Anger Max.
Yeah.
And then Yuffie's is, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but.
And then Red 13's is I've got him right here. I don't even know why I'm asking.
We hear the horse claps.
Huh?
Hearing the horse claps. The horse as he looks up.
All right, here it comes. It is his final one is Cosmo Memory. And it basically is a quad 9. But Earth Rave is the one. He will attack for a total of 5 times. All attacks, including the final attack, will hit for 1.875 times the damage a Red 13's weapon does at a regular attack damage. So it does a lot.
Yeah. And
then we already know Barrett's. Yuffie's. I can't remember what Yuffie's is.
You almost called her Yuki.
I know I did. I stopped myself. So All Creation is her final one. And that's a one shot. But the big one is Doom of the Living. 15 attacks. That's yeah. But no, I mean it's really weird how they did that. That those limit breaks are the best for them. I can't remember Vincent's.
Well,
he transforms.
Yeah, he transforms and you lose control of him. Which we'll go to Vincent right now. How about that?
Yeah.
As I lose control of my mouse. So Vincent, Vincent's an awesome character. Vincent
He's
is
very dark
he's a dark character.
and mysterious.
He's brooding. I'm gonna go over here and brood.
Yeah.
So Vincent was experimented on by Hojo. He a long time ago was a member of the Turks for Shinra, and he was in love with this gal who is a scientist along with Hojo. And she ended up, that's her and Hojo end up creating Sephiroth by Hojo impregnating her and then injecting the fetus with Genova cells. Vincent finds out about it. He's like, "Rebel, this is not right." And then Hojo's like, bang, just shoots him.
Yeah,
and
he
then,
literally is. Bang.
and then shoots him, and then like injects him with a whole bunch of crap. Essentially, he becomes like a demon. He like hides in a coffin, like, "I am asleep because of my sins." And then he ends up joining the group because he wants revenge on Hojo. And then Vincent blames himself for the existence of Sephiroth and everything that's happened. And Vincent's an interesting character. His limit breaks. As we said, he transforms and you lose control of him. That's the only thing I don't like. I wish you could at least choose which attack he does. Because what sucks is that there's two of them are like elemental, I think. One of them's fire. And right after you get him, you want to use him. You're like, "Oh, new character. He's a badass. He uses a gun," and all that shit. And then when you go fight Materia Keeper, who is your next boss, he absorbs all fire damage.
Yeah.
So if you ain't ready, you don't know that. Then every other turn, Vince is just going to be healing the bastard.
Yep.
And the damn thing already does cure too when it gets down so low.
Beast Flare is the name of that attack he utilizes. And Galen Beast, which is level 1.
Galleon Beast.
Galleon Beast, yep.
Yeah, that's just a physical attack. But I do enjoy his character, but unfortunately with Yuffie and Vincent, Yuffie's plot line is really easily accessible. With Vincent, you have to seek it out. Yeah, and it does involve the lady scientist Lucretia. Lucretia? I can't say her name very well.
I think so, yeah.
It does involve seeking her out underneath the waterfall. And you basically getting some scenes from the past. And then, of course, the showdown with Hojo. You get a little
Lucretia's Crystal Cave.
But I like how they gave him a lot of development in Advent Children and gave him a lot more screen time than some of the others, even though I would like to have more Red 13 or Barrett. They really made Vincent more of a focal point, which is cool because he doesn't get a lot, and he's a very popular character. But
he does so much damage, too, as when he turns into Chaos.
Yeah.
5.625 times damage or instant death. That's Satan's Slam. Yeah, Satan and Chaos Slaver, which does physical damage to a single target, and then Satan Slam.
So,
which most big guys are immune to that attack. So
let's talk about Sephiroth. Sephiroth is a dude who he's like the ultimate soldier. He's like the ultimate badass. Everybody wants to be him. He thinks he's just gifted. He was born gifted, but really he was created to be that way. And when he finds out on that mission 5 years ago, he loses his shit.
Well, he goes through every document that Hojo has in that mansion.
In that good old little library that's down there.
Yep.
And while we're talking, I'm actually going to bring up a picture that I know I have.
Yeah.
Because I have both of them. I'm going to bring it up. Yeah, look at that right there. Put it right over my face. So that's our boy right there. That is the man himself.
That is my background on my phone when it is open.
So Sephiroth, that is taken from the cutscene. When he loses his mind, he's in the Nibelheim mansion's basement. Then he leaves and he burns the town to the ground. And that's where that's from.
And that's basically where he decides what he is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
He decides that he will no longer be a part of Soldier and that he's going to fulfill Genova's wishes.
Yes. And of course, she's being kept at that reactor in Nibelheim.
Yep.
Buddy, this is a bad idea from the get-go, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Why would you send him there? But then again, Sephiroth never gave really indication that he was under any sort of mental stress. And it wasn't until this point that he had
Well, in the game now, in Crisis Core, they kind of talk about when he's fighting with
Genesis.
Genesis, and Genesis is like, dude, take it easy. Like, you are, way above us. And Sephiroth's kind of contemplating, like, why? Why is he so much better than everyone else? Why is he this? Why is he that? Obviously, that leads to what he becomes later on. And actually, quite very short after that cutscene, he learns who he truly is.
Yeah, man, it's absolutely crazy because Sephiroth actually dies. The Cloud ends up killing him.
Yes.
And then he flows through the life stream. His physical body does until he reaches the Northern Cavern. And then he's like in this weird pseudo like comatose state where he's alive. He's not like he's been kind of preserved. And then he is calling Jenova, and Jenova's going back to him because he cuts off the head of Jenova. And
right.
And Jenova has this whole thing about being whole. It's like the T-1000 from Terminator. It's like blah, 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 blah. And all the clones of Sephiroth were ejected with Jenova cells, as was Cloud. And Sephiroth has the head of Jenova. He cut the head off. So when Jenova, the body, which was moved to the Shinra headquarters, gets out, it's trying to get back to the head to be whole again. And then throughout the game, you think you're chasing him, when really Cloud's being called.
Right.
It's really cool little storytelling aspect there. And it's this whole thing about that's when Cloud loses himself in the game, and then really breaks his mind breaks completely, and Tifa has to pretty much rebuild him.
Yeah,
it's a great story element there, but
hopefully it's done better in the remake.
I don't dislike it, but I don't really feel like it's the game's fault more than it is like the kind of the translation and localization. If that were done better, then it definitely would be better. Next, I want to talk about Hojo. We already said he's a scientist who's the fault of everything. The ultimate evil in this damn game is Hojo, and it's throughout the game you see him a few times. You finally have a showdown with him, and you defeat him, but he actually uploads his mind to a computer, and then he's a villain in one of the sequels, which I have only played twice. Dirge of Cerberus. I don't know. Yeah, have you ever even played it? I would watch it on YouTube if you ever like get in a 7 kick.
I own it.
Oh, well, I mean, if you want to play it, good luck. But
hey, it has a good user score. Okay,
it has a way better user score than what it deserves. To be honest with you, it's not a good game. It's like it's got a decent story, but it's just. I think they didn't know what they want. They wanted to be an action shooter. They wanted to be an action shooter and an RPG and all this kind of things. Whereas if they would have made a clone of Devil May Cry, it probably would have played way much better. Like,
yeah,
I hate to say that, where just to take that gameplay and just clone it, but it worked for Dante's Inferno when they just cloned God of War. So, whatever. Now, of course, the good guys win, right? Aerith dies. They defeat Shinra. They go off and they defeat Sephiroth because Eris summoned Holy, but Sephiroth holding it back. And Sephiroth does summon Meteor when Cloud hands him the black materia himself when he's being mind screwed.
Right.
So the meteor's going to crash down, and the Holy gets released, and it's too late. It's far too late for Holy to do anything. And they're witnessing it, and they're just like, what do we do? There's nothing that we can do. And then off in the distance, they see the live stream. In the live stream, the planet protects itself. And then the last scene that we see in the game is, of course, the first thing you see in the game. And that's Eris's face. And it leads you. It hints at the fact that she was in the live stream and she helped make that happen.
Essentially, she kind of was like, hey, this is what's going on. Because essentially, like, the live stream is basically, if you die, your spirit energy goes to the live stream, and then you are reborn as something or someone else.
Yeah, a tree or a person or...
Yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's basically the cycle. It's essentially their version of the cycle of life.
Right.
And it's unique, it's cool. But the fact that they make it to where like Eris can still maneuver and think as a person and not just be a part of the stream. And that's actually one of the ancients' most powerful, I guess, their achievement that they are trying to achieve, the ability to exist after death.
Well, it's funny because like the game ends with everything blowing up, and then you don't know what happens.
Yeah,
you know, it's one of those. You know, I've actually compared this ending to the Mass Effect 3 ending that pissed everybody off, where you picked an ending. It's like, do you want this one, or this one? And then it's like it goes through the motions and it shows you the ending, and it's mostly the same ending. And people are like, well, what happens? That's the beauty. It's you don't get to see the future. You basically make one last decision and set them on a path. And your part in this decision making is done. And we don't, for a long time we didn't get to find out what happened to these characters. There's an after credit scene where Red 13's running along with some little cubs. 500 years later, jumps up a cliff, and there's Midgar, that big technological wonder of a city, completely overrun by nature. So the planet has survived. It's healed. It's getting better. There's a big kind of like eco-friendly undertones in this game.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, let's just be honest here. Protect the planet, fight for the planet, heal the planet. We're damaging it. But so then it's like, okay, so Red 13 lived. That means everybody else must have lived as well. What happened? And we're like, I want to know, damn it. And it was one of those things where it's like you play through this entire game, this entire adventure, but it's like, well, what happened to Cloud? What happened to Tifa, Barrett? What happened to everybody? And they're like, well, for me, for a long time, it was my own fan fiction, my own creation in my mind of what happened until we got the movie.
Yes.
And they finally added to the story. And I remember the movie came out September 2005 in Japan. And it was slated to come out in the States.
I watched it in Japanese.
In like 2006 sometime. I also watched it in Japanese. Because this boy right here maybe might have downloaded it illegally because I couldn't wait.
You still bought it, so...
I bought it twice. So, I do remember it was New Year's Eve 2005. It was a few months later. I was in a band at the time, and we had a New Year's Eve gig. And it was downloading while I was gone because it was a big download. I mean, was like 2005. I had just got cable internet, and I was like a 3 megs download speed, which was fast at the time, man. For me, I was like, oh my god, this is so fast. And it was downloading the entire time I was gone, and I was having fun, with some friends and whatnot. But I wanted to go home and watch that movie.
Yeah.
So shortly after the show, I didn't stay too long. I probably left around 1:00, to be honest with you. And I came home and grabbed me something to eat, or I made something, sat down on my computer, and watched Advent Children for the first time. And I was awed.
It's phenomenal.
I was so happy to be back in this world.
Let me tell you what. Some of the people they pick for them voices, wow. Barrett.
Well, okay.
That guy who voices Barrett better be the voice in the new game.
Well, and you're talking about the English cast, right?
Yes.
Okay. He is. They or at least was when they were making it before.
Yeah.
They already, like, when they showed us the little bit that they showed us, they already had some of the voice work done.
Yes.
And so which is crazy, which makes me think, like I was saying to you, I wouldn't be surprised to see it come out sooner than later.
Do you think that they will wait until the Japanese release date or the American or North America? Because if they wait to North America, they can release it this year. Or will they wait until January 31st, which is actually when the initial game came out?
Sure.
Or
what?
do you think they'll just slide it for whenever they can and just go?
Originally, I heard the date was supposed to be 2018. As far as I'm concerned, you can release it whenever it's done. Give it to me. I want to play this game. Of course, we don't know if it's going to be how much, because we're supposed to be episodic as far as like 3 parts.
Here's the thing, though, with releasing it, they can do whatever they want. It's FF7.
Right.
They have no competition. It is literally like, well, we don't want to put it around this. Like new games are. It's like everybody's going to be like, when is 7 dropping? Okay, we want to avoid a month after that.
Okay, it would be to compare it to, if people are still listening to this and don't really understand, like the magnum, like that this is. Imagine if they completely remade from the ground up. New graphics, new engine, everything. Say what they did with Breath of the Wild, right? It doesn't have to be that open. It can be. You can expand the world to be that open. But if they remade Ocarina of Time with what they've done, with what they accomplished with Breath of the Wild, with that engine.
Which is most people's
favorite.
Oh, this is the best Zelda game, which ours is Link.
Yeah, it's Link to the Past. But still,
because that's what we played first.
Well, and I don't discount the fact that Ocarina is awesome, and it was the first 3D Zelda. It was different. It was.
I hate the time. I don't like being limited.
Be that as it may, it's an amazing game, and it would be like that. And this is what this game is. This game, FF7 Remake, it's important. I remember when they first aired the PS3 tech demo. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
Because
I remember flipping out because I thought we were getting it.
Well, and I did too. And a lot of people did too, because it was like, why did you do this? And Square's just like, we just wanted to have fun and make something kind of cool.
And literally the entire internet imploded like, why? You gotta remake it. Oh my God.
So the FF7 PS3 tech demo is the intro to FF7 completely rebuilt from the ground up with a new graphics engine. And it is completely, it's using the same kind of graphics engine that they made Advent Children the movie with.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It still looks good even today.
It does, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, it looks like the old style, but it's still good.
You can still you can see that it's dated. I mean, I think this released in like they did this in like 05 or 06 or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and this is Final Fantasy VII technical demo for PS3. And it does the entire intro. It's awesome. It shows Midgar, and then it does the whole train sequence marching towards the reactor that leads you to the first mission of the game. And I remember seeing this at E3 and flipping out.
Yeah.
I was completely like, I nerd bonered pretty fucking hard. And then, of course, stops, floom, jumps down. And, of course, what outfit is he wearing? It's the old outfit, but then the hairstyle's the new Advent Children hairstyle.
Right.
Freaking awesome. But I nerd bonered as much when I saw this. And I'm going to play this, and we're going to talk about it. This is the announced trailer from 2015 when they announced they were making the remake. I remember where I was. I was at work when I saw the announcement for this, and I ran right over to you, shoved my phone in your face. You were probably a little irritated, going, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then you immediately saw why and didn't care.
Yep. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, give me. And then I literally snatched the phone from you, like, give me that.
And then I remember running home. I might have watched it in my car, and then went home and watched it 5 more times. Because, like, at start, they're doing all this stuff, and it's new, it's different. It's like, what is this? You know? It is, FF7, but I remember when people were watching it, they were like, wait, is this? Is this? Huh, really? And it wasn't until the very end, of it. It was like, it's almost like you wanted to believe it was it until you actually saw this part where with the at the end with the camera zooming in down the alleyway.
And then just a little flash.
Well, and then you see these people walk in, and then you see the gun, and then you see, wait, what? And you see the dude behind him. It's Barrett. It's Cloud with the sword.
So, funny thing about this is that when I rewatch this, right after that, it shows the crowd, and I can almost guarantee that 75% of the crowd was crying.
Oh, dude, I was...
Because they were so happy to finally get this game remade.
I don't remember what website it was, what YouTube channel it was. They flipped out. I remember watching it because there was like these 2 dudes or whatever, and they like jumped out of their chairs, and there was a girl there that was like, I'm happy too, but you're scaring me.
Yeah.
And they're losing their minds. And what's funny is that you had that, and then like an announcement after that, they did something else, and then they had the Shenmue 3. You barely had enough time to come down for people that were like these big time games we never thought we were going to see. We never thought we were going to see a continuation of Shenmue. We never thought we were going to see an official remake of 7, and yet it's happening.
That PlayStation, that Sony thing that they did that year, they didn't just drop the mic, they slammed it through like 22 layers of concrete.
Well, if you remember, that was 2015, and I remember 2013 they did the same thing when they announced the PS4.
Yeah.
And so 2015 was awesome as well.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, making noise over there. Before we get out of here, FF7, let's look at I have the Metacritic ratings. Metacritic, this game has not been review bombed, surprisingly, because for a while it was very popular to hate on this game. Metascore of 92. It's a Metacritic must-play. It also has a user score of 92 or 9.2.
And it literally has a must-play symbol on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the higher-rated games on there. It's FF7 is a game to play. If you like RPGs, you must play it.
There's a lot of broken mechanics in this.
Sure,
there are certain
absolutely.
things that do not work.
There's some stuff you can do with the materia system, which is cool, which we haven't talked about yet. And we can go as far as you want, but really what I like about it is that every single character you get has certain base stats that they start off as that they're good at.
Right.
But with the materia system, you can pretty much play custom whatever you want and make Cloud the healer. And it's not recommended you have Eris play physical damage dude, but warrior, but you can do it. But literally with the materia system, it's not like the days of old where you have to buy a spell and learn it, or like what you do in FF9 where you equip something and you learn it and then you have it forever. You actually have to level up each spell individually.
Yep.
Each materia, you level up that one, and then you can put it on whoever you want, and it'll have some defects with it where it'll lower your HP by a couple percent, or if you use magic or summons are the same way. You also have other materia that do like for sensing, you sense the enemy's HP. But then you can do combos. They have like little links where you can put two of them together. So you can have lightning attack and it hits them all. Or you can do final attack, where if you die, the last thing you'll do is the paired.
Yeah, the normally paired one with that is Phoenix.
Well, yes, Phoenix is a summon that attacks and then casts life 2 on everybody, which heals everybody. Even if they're dead, they rise and then they get full heal. But I mean, it's really cool system. It's very custom. It does require some grind though if you want to do everything. Once you find, kind of like what I do and what I've always done is I find my comfort spot, find the spells that I really want to use, and then find my spots where I level up with some AP to level those up and go with that. And then, of course, if you want to get like master materia where you have to max out everything, that's kind of a grind. But
and yeah, that is actually a massive grind. And even whenever you're at the Northern Caverns and you have the 4 times?
Well, there's so you have weapons that you can get triple growth, which you can only put growth. 3 on, and then there's these little bouncing dots, and they give you like 10,000 apiece, and so you get 30,000 AP on these, and some of those material you can max out pretty quick, but then if you're doing the summons, those take a lot.
If you have Knights of a Round, that takes so long, because Knights of a Round is basically your ultimate summon, and times 10 damage of almost quad 9. It's 9 above. So it's you, and what's really cool is that you have other materia in the game that allow you to do like W summon. W summon allows you to summon
twice.
That specific summon twice. And then there's so many unique combos. Like there's the Reflect All spell. So there's a spell that you can have one of your people do that will put Reflect on all your people. And then you can W summon and summon it onto yourself. And what it'll basically do is reflect that times 3 times 2. It takes a long time to go through that, but basically you do it once and it's everybody's dead normally.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I really like the system. Pretty much there's a lot of things to level up. The limit system, limit breaks. As you get attacked, your bar levels up, and then when it maxes out, you can do like a big ass attack. Each level has 2 attacks, except for 4. It's the last one. You only get 1, and to level those up, you have to use for like each level. For your first one, you have to use it like 10 times, 8 times, however many times, and then you get your second attack. And then it's all about how many enemies you kill. It's like usually about 100 per person, except for Eris, she only has to kill 80. But then you level up to level 2, and then you use that one 8 times, and then you kill 100 more people, and then you're at level 3, and then the 4th one is actually an item that you have to get in a certain manner.
Most of them.
Yeah. But we're gonna go ahead. We looked at the Metacritic for fun. Crisis Score on PSP. When that was the next actual FF7 game that came out. That's the reason why I bought a PSP. And
the prequel, yep. Yeah, that's the reason why I bought one too.
It is the prequel. It follows Zack, and you get to play up until he dies, pretty much. And so you get to play through the whole 5 years ago incident, which is a little segment in the main game, but you get to play through the whole thing here. And it's an awesome part of the game. It is setting Metacritic score at an 83 with a user rating of 8.8. I would say 85, is probably a good rating for that game. It's not the best game. but it's pretty good for what it is, and it's like for a single character RPG, it's kind of an action RPG,
Yeah.
And it works good. And like I said, Dirge of Cerberus, Metacritic score 57, user score of 8.5, which boggles my mind. I remember when this game came out. This game came out before Crisis Core. I remember buying this game and was psyched like you would not believe. Put it in and was like, So I went and got Game Shark cheats just so I could play the damn story. And funny enough, the alternate ending for this game introduces the character of Genesis, who is then the main villain of Crisis Core. Lastly, before we get out of here, the sales. I have some of the sales for the the top sales for the FF series. I'll make this a little. Wait, get that one. Sales here. I'll make this a little bit bigger so people can see it. If you're watching the video on this, FF7, as it says, is just over 9 million copies. This is on original platforms only on the PS1. This doesn't count the good old PSN copies or anything like that. Then, of course, the next one out is just like 8.5. It'd be Final Fantasy 10. Final Fantasy 8. I do remember Final Fantasy 8 selling like gangbusters because it was coming right after 7. And 8 had a big, and almost just as big ad campaign for it. Unlike 9 did not. 9 did not have as much of an ad campaign for it. 9's not even on this top 5 selling list. After 8 is 13. Which that was on 2 different systems, so that kind of helps that. And then, of course, after what was that 13? Is that like around 7 million? And then at like 6.5, maybe it's around is FF12 on the PS2. And of course, some of these games have been re-released. FF12 has been remastered on the PS4 and Xbox One.
So is 10
and 10, and those are now coming out on the Switch as well.
And I can never get past Blitzball.
Yeah, well, you should try. It's a really awesome story.
I know it is. I do know that it is. It's just, God, Blitzball's so good. Why you gotta make some so good?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But anyway, guys, that I don't have much more to go on. This game changed my life.
Yeah.
In gaming. From this point on, I wanted story-based RPGs. I was all over FF8 when it came out. I was all over Legend of Dragoon.
God, Legend of Dragoon.
I remember renting Final Fantasy.
Man, that game was hard.
Right. But I remember renting Final Fantasy Tactics, thinking, Final Fantasy, and getting it was like, this is hard.
I don't like this. But then turn around and I really like Tactics Advanced.
And then, of course, I mean, FF9. FF9 has a very special place in my heart. All in all, I love 4. I love 6. I love 10. 9 is probably, if you had to say what's my second favorite Final Fantasy, it's 9. 9's ending.
The story in 10, to me, is great.
I agree.
But 9 as a whole game, from everything combat to the story to the character development and everything as a whole, that's a better game.
My only, and I've said this before to you, my only criticism about 9 is that the combat's a little slow. You get used to it, especially when you're having fun with it, you don't care. But I wish it was just a little bit faster paced. But the ending to 9 makes me tear up every time. When they do the whole did Zidane make it out, and then the VV speech thing at the end, playing the song, and you get to see the characters afterwards. And then they do the play, and then he made his back, and then she runs to him. That gets me.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's in this game, I know you told me before that when Eris died, it brought you to tears for the first time. And I can't say I felt that, because I kind of had it spoiled for me because I had the guide.
Yeah, I had no idea it was coming, and it hit, and I was just like,
Unfortunately,
why?
Unfortunately, I saw it, but I saw that she was going to die, but I did not. I didn't see the video. Yeah, I was like, I was still like, oh crap, this is it. Oh, you know.
Yeah.
But the 7 has a very special place too because it was the one that really kickstarted everything for RPGs with me, and 7 was also like the the genesis for me for getting into more story based games. You know, after 7, 8 Dragoon, I remember staying up all night to finish Metal Gear Solid because I got wrapped up in the story. Not because I thought the gameplay was the best thing ever, and no, it was the story. It was, wrapping that up and being hooked. And I'm looking forward to tremendously to see what they do with the remake. It's one of those things where it's going to be. They can never take the original away from me.
Right.
So even if this new version is not what I want and it sucks, it's never going to take the original away. And what I'll do is probably just like run away into my bedroom and cry for a good hour, and then I'll just turn the original on. By the way, guys, if you buy that wretched PlayStation Classic that's out, this game's on there. So. It's not
it is.
It's not like the PlayStation Classic was on sale for like $20 at one point not too long ago. Not a bad price to get this game on. Of course, you can get this game on the PS4. It's on the Switch or coming to the Switch. It's going to be on Xbox One. Those are the PC versions. It's on the PC as well on Steam. And of course, the original game is on the original PS1. And of course, if you have a legacy PlayStation device like a Vita or a PS3 or even a PSP, you can download the game.
Yes, you can.
And put it on your memory and take it with you. So, awesome game. Mike, thank you so much for talking about this game. Ad nauseum with me today. I cannot wait for that remake, and I really hope it's this year. We'll see.
I do as well.
Anyway, guys, until next time, thank you guys for checking out this podcast and indulging our love for FF7. It's one of our favorite games of all times. The one, in fact.
The one.
And in the meantime, you can find us on all of our, all your favorite podcast services. We're also on YouTube. We're on twitch.tv/GameXplay, where we live stream the show each and every time that we do. And, of course, the next day, on Thursdays, it goes out on podcast services. And on Fridays, that video is over on YouTube Live. And, of course, check us out on our social medias, GameXplay, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagrams, and to stay caught up with all that we are doing. Until next time, guys, I have been Brando.
And I have been Mike.
Have a good one, guys. Game on. See you next time.